Over 40 years, beginning in the mid-1930s, Dr. Finland trained more than 100 research fellows in infectious diseases. They, in turn, took positions of importance at other hospitals and universities and replicated his model. So he had not only sons and daughters, but grandsons and great-grandsons.
Maxwell Finland was among the first to warn that microbes don't stand still as we develop the means to try to deal with them. About 25 years ago, there was a declared victory against infection. It was said that with modern sanitation, vaccines, and antibiotics, we could close that book and concentrate all our resources on other urgent health and social problems. This would have been the end of an era in which infection was mankind's deadliest scourge, the largest source of morbidity and of death of all, as it remains today in a very large part of the world. It was certainly the global HIV pandemic that reopened our eyes, but it is still not widely understood how many other plagues are waiting in the wings.
And it truly is an extraordinary honor to be part of tonight's tribute to Dr. Maurice Hilleman, who is one of the true heroes of science and medicine in the 20th century. One can say without hyperbole that he has changed the world with his contributions in disease prevention. The vaccines that he has developed has saved the lives of virtually millions of children and adults and has improved the lives of countless others. The proportion of our most important vaccines that can be attributed to the work of Maurice and his outstanding colleagues, especially those at Merck, is truly remarkable. In a career spanning more than 5 decades, Maurice has guided more than 40 vaccines to licensure.
I'm sometimes asked if I think that we'll conquer infectious diseases in the next century. It's a millennium, and everyone's getting very goosey about it. And my answer to that is probably not, because infectious diseases remain today, as they have through history, the most common cause of death and suffering in the world. And the leading causes of death in the world remain respiratory infection, diarrheal disease of the young, malaria, tuberculosis, and even leprosy and tetanus, and of course, in the past decade, HIV. HIV reminds us that the smallest living things in which we share our planet have biological cunning and understand the principles of evolution as well as we. And they have done it longer, and they can do it faster and more efficiently than we can.
And one really begins to appreciate the magnitude of the honor when one looks at the list of prior recipients. And I am particularly happy to receive this award because I held Maxwell Finland in such esteem, as we all did at that time, when he was such a leader in teaching and in the clinical excellence of infectious diseases.
Max Finland, the 99th anniversary of whose birth is 2 days hence, was one of the 20th century's outstanding students of infectious disease. It is unlikely that anyone in his lifetime contributed more to the treatment of infectious disorders than he. Although I was not one of his pupils, we had a friendship dating from mid-century, valued because I usually learned something at every time we met.
This is a particularly important honor for me because it's named for my professional father, my mentor, and one of my leading cheerleaders. And I'd like to add some reminiscences of my own to what you saw in the film. His career in infectious diseases began as the pneumonia resident at the Boston City Hospital in 1928. So this is young Max. As part of the exhibit, there's a letter from Albert Sabin to Max dated December 1931, and they address each other as Dear Finland, and it's signed Sincerely Sabin. And the letter says something to the effect of, Max, I really enjoyed your work on the pneumococcus And I've been doing some work in the pneumococcus as well, but this summer I had an opportunity to work up an outbreak of paralytic polio, and I think I'm going to turn my attention to poliomyelitis. So that's 1931, and within 30 years, we have the vaccine that subsequently would reduce the burden of disease.
You all know that tuberculosis is the infectious disease with which I am most familiar. What you may not know is that for many decades, tuberculosis has had its own separate niche, somewhere between infectious and chronic diseases, and pretty well isolated from both of them. Only recently has tuberculosis edged over into the purview of infectious disease and specialists. So recently, in fact, that I was surprised, as well as greatly honored, to learn that I had been selected as this year's recipient of the Maxwell Finland Award.
I didn't know Max well, but I had met him on several occasions. And as I review his legendary history, there are parallels in our careers. Max and I had another thing in common. Underwriting everything we did was the concern and the drive to find the best therapeutics for the treatment and prevention of infectious disease, so that an infant like this, our 3-month-old grandchild Edie, will remain healthy for the rest of her life. Thank you very much.
I want to thank the MFID. This is sort of a seminal event in my career, and it's wonderful to receive the Maxwell Finland Award. I think all of us know that Maxwell Finland is the father of infectious disease. If you do the genealogy of this discipline, he's the father that we are all derived from. So it's very meaningful.
I'm particularly honored to receive the Finland Award tonight because I did have a relationship with Max Finland. It started when he lectured to our class at Harvard Medical School. I'd be a liar if I told you that they were scintillating lectures. There was one characteristic that you didn't hear about tonight, but he was a terrible lecturer. He was the dullest, most boring lecturer in the world. But he had all kinds of other strengths. He was a wonderful man.
Dr. Spink introduced me to Dr. Finland on several occasions at meetings, and I was struck with two things about him. One is he was pretty small, and I had trouble finding him sometimes, looking around. My wife, Peggy, who's 5'3", towered over Dr. Finland. The other thing is he was so quiet. You know, somebody so great ought to be loud. That's what I learned from so many other people. But his contributions to our field were giant. They were incredible. No one had a greater impact than Dr. Finland in training outstanding academic leaders and in showing us the importance of the field of infectious diseases and antibiotic resistance.
The award is named in memory of the late Maxwell Finland, a distinguished scholar, a scientist, and a teacher whom we all cherished and loved very much. I personally was privileged to work with this bright, demanding, and stimulating man. Although he was diminutive in stature, this was a giant of a person.